great. Welcome back. Part 5, Suspect 5, Correct Conditional Form. I can tell you straight away, if you can focus on mastering the correct conditional forms, it shows a great thing. It shows that you know how to talk about cause and effect. It's a very common thing that you want to communicate, not only in your opinion essays, but also in the integrated task, because very often there'll be causality, cause and effect talked about. The other thing that it shows is that you're willing to create some different structures within your sentences, and of course you're going to need to use the correct tenses. So practice your conditional forms and get them into your essays. I guarantee you it will boost your score. Conditional forms are extremely useful parts of your writing and speaking skill set. There are 4 main forms. Form 1 we call the zero conditional. We use it for general facts and things that are always true. So if you know that you want to communicate about a general scientific fact, for example, the zero conditional is the right one for you. Form 2, the first conditional, very similar structure to the zero conditional, but we use will. We'll look at all of these very soon. We use the first conditional when it's a real cause and effect relationship. Contrast that now with Form 3. The second conditional. Second conditional we use when it's an unlikely or impossible outcome, and the relationship in the causality therefore needs to be communicated using different tenses. Form 4 is the third conditional. We only use it for referring to the past in a typical conditional sentence. We talk about past regrets and alternative past results. Right, the use of the zero conditional, as already mentioned, general facts and things that are always true. Structure 1, structure 2, in each of these we're going to look at where we start with the if at the beginning, and then the second structure where we put if in the middle of the sentence. Structure 1, if plus present simple plus comma plus present simple. Nice. For example, if it rains, the grass grows. It's always true. Example 2, if water is heated, energy is transferred. A special note on example 2, we sometimes replace if with when if we know that the relationship is definite. So we could say, when water is heated, energy is transferred. Structure 2, present simple plus if plus present simple. And you can see how I've highlighted each of these so that you can take the different parts of grammar and separate them and then consider the actual rules that are being highlighted here. Example 3, Tim gets angry if you steal his whiskey. Okay. The if here is in the middle. We do not use a comma. We only use the comma when the if comes first. Example 4, you feel good if you drink coffee. Alright, definite causality, and it's zero conditional. It's always true. So when something's always true, present simple, present simple. The first conditional, what's the use? Real cause and effect relationships. There's no more of this always true. It is an actual causality that's going on here. Structure 1, if to begin with, plus present simple, plus comma. Now we go plus will, plus the infinitive without to. So that's the only difference. If you pop back to the previous slide, you can compare how we're just changing a little bit as we go from the zero to the first conditional in terms of grammatical structure. Example 5, if it doesn't rain today, we will go rock climbing. This is a definite situation. It's not something that's always true. Therefore, we use the first conditional. Example 6, if they see a whale, they will be ecstatic. Okay. If you're not sure of any vocabulary, by the way, pause the video, look at it in the dictionary, and you'll find out that ecstatic means a feeling of great joy. Okay, structure 2. Here we go will plus infinitive without to. You can see we're just swapping it around. This time the if comes in the middle, and again it's followed by the present simple. Example 7, your wife will divorce you if she finds out. So we do not put the comma before if. Just remember that if it comes in the middle of the sentence, in other words, we're reversing the clauses. Example 8, over 100,000 people will attend the concert if she agrees to perform. Pause the video there, just have a reread of those sentences if you need to. A special note, we never use if and will in the same clause. This is probably the most common mistake that you'll hear with the first conditional. If I will, then I will. No, we do not put will there. We put the will in the result clause. We keep it separate from the if. Likewise, in the next conditional, we do not say if I would, I would. No, just keep it if and keep it separate. The second conditional, unlikely or impossible cause and effect relationships. Contrast that with the previous slide. We were looking at the first conditional, which is the real conditional, things that are definitely going to happen according to a condition. The structure now, compare it with the previous one, if plus past simple. So we've gone from the present simple next to if to the past simple. It's getting slightly more complicated as the conditional becomes less likely or more impossible. We then use the comma, of course, after the if clause. Then we use would instead of will now, okay? And again, the infinitive without to. Example 9, if I were you, I would buy both pairs of shoes. Example 10, if she were younger, he would marry her. Okay? So, special note, in academic English, always use were, even if is agrees with the subject. So this is especially true in your academic environments in the USA. So if you go on to blogs and you hear different descriptions of when to use was and were, remember there's different types of English. First of all, there's formal and informal. There's British versus American. So let's just focus on what is going to get you points in your TOEFL. Always use were in the second conditional. It's that simple. If I were you, if she were younger, if they were, he were, it were, whatever it may be. Structure 2, again, we're going to reverse the structure here. Would instead of will. Plus infinitive without to, plus if, plus past simple. Example 11. A change of government would be possible if enough protests were held. Don't worry about the fact that we're using the passive form there, were held. Just have a look, it's in the past simple. We don't know who's holding the protest, therefore we use the third in the passive, were held. Back to the first clause, a change of government would be possible. If this were the first conditional, it would be a change of government will be possible. But for some reason, we're deciding to say it's much less likely or even impossible. So we said a change of government would be possible. Finally, example 12, this is the final one for the second conditional. The holiday would fly by if she joined us. So think about the context. It's not possible or very unlikely that this person will join the group on holiday, but if she were there, it would be much better for everybody. Third conditional. Now we go to the most complex structure grammatically. We've gone from 0 through first through second. You'll notice it's gradually getting more complicated. And now with this third conditional, when we're dealing with past regrets and alternative past results, structure 1. If plus past perfect. So if you need to review that, go ahead and have a look back at your grammar. Plus comma, plus would, plus present perfect. So really, the best way now is just to have a look at an example. You'll see how we've colored the different tenses so it's easier for you to spot. If you had studied harder for the test, you would have scored over 90 points. So it's very simple. There are different levels of English among you, but one thing's for sure. The harder you work, the more chance you have of mastering this TOEFL. TOEFL is a tough test. People who just say, oh, you don't need to bother studying for TOEFL, just do a couple of practice tests. If that's all you need to do, that's fantastic. I can tell you, statistically speaking, people need to do a lot of practice because it's under huge time pressure and people are suddenly surprised. Example 14. If Alexander Fleming had remembered to clean the dishes, he would never have discovered penicillin. If you don't know the story, it's a good one to look up on YouTube. Change the world. Now, had remembered is the past perfect. It's in the if clause. If we were doing the second conditional here, we would just say, if Alexander Fleming remembered instead of had remembered. Yeah. So you can always play around with these and just say, oh, how does that change the structure? How does it change the meaning? Well, for one thing's for sure, this is all from the past, therefore there's no way we could use the second conditional, we must use the third conditional. Example 16. Schabowski would never have said that if he had read the memo properly. He didn't read the memo, it's all in the past. And then he said something, but he would never have said that if he had read the memo properly. We're going to look at one more slide now connected to conditionals. I don't recommend mixing conditionals unless you're actually confident with each of the 4 conditional forms in their standard form. However, sometimes it can be useful. Let's just have a look at a few examples. Conditional forms are sometimes mixed when appropriate. Here we go, mix 1. A present result and a past condition. So there was a past condition. Sure, there could have been a past result, but maybe there's a present result. If you hadn't drunken that bottle of wine last night, so that was the past condition, you would be able to come with me now. Do you see the mixture there? We're not saying would have, which would be past. We're throwing in from the second conditional, you would be able to. So we can mix up the present in green with the past in orange, the third conditional with the second conditional. Mix 2, past results of continuing action. So let's look at example 18 here. If she weren't constantly criticizing people, remember second conditional here, we're using weren't instead of wasn't, it's academically correct. I would have stayed in the company. So we are implying that it's a continuing situation. This person is constantly criticizing, and in the past, in this case, I decided not to stay in the company. So there you go. Think about this, pause the video. If you feel particularly adventurous, it'd be great if you try to put some of these conditionals into your writing. We recommend in the speaking you keep it more simple, because if you start mixing it up in the speaking, suddenly you might not be so confident because it is quite a complex issue. So become super confident through your writing and then implement that in your speaking as well.